I have myelofibrosis, but it started with polycythemia vera, and I've been living with this for about 33 years. When I was first diagnosed, I was 19, so between my husband and I was not married yet. We got married. We decided when I got pregnant that I would stay home with the kids. We had no idea how long this was going to affect my life. So I decided I wanted to stay home with the kids, or we decided I would stay home with the kids so they would remember who their mother was, and their mother could give them their morals and teach them what's right and wrong. And then, so I struggled in the area. You know, it's hard to stay home with the one income these days, but we did. And so all my life, I've just kind of, my kids are my focus, my health is my focus, and work has been my, I'm only just now going back to work full time. The normal lifespan of somebody with PV was about 11 years because of the demographics of who was usually diagnosed at the time. I mean, it was a disorder at that time. Nobody knew anything about it 33 years ago. I have been treated enough that I didn't have a lot of the constitutional symptoms, and maybe it was because I started early enough being treated. So I didn't really have the itching and the bone pain so much. I did have it on and off depending on my treatment, but the biggest thing for me was my spleen. I mean, if you think of a water balloon, and if it's full of blood, the spleen people can die from a ruptured spleen. So if you have a water balloon, any little bit of palpating it. I mean, even when I was pregnant with I had my first child, and then I had my second child, and my doctor even at that point said, don't let your first child kick you on your left side, because it could rupture your spleen. It was that big that even just that little bit could rupture my spleen. So I babied my left side a lot. It was as if I was 4 months pregnant forever.
And when you were first introduced to fedratinib on the clinical trial, tell me about how that took place.
Unfortunately for me, there was a placebo arm. Yeah. And at the time I was on the trial, my spleen was there. The medications I was working with didn't really, nothing was really working on my spleen. I had an upper GI bleed, so I've been kind of waiting for the right kind of drug. And then I get on this drug, this great trial, and unfortunately it was very, very evident right away that I was on the placebo arm of the trial. I don't know how the drug company thought that being a double blind that nobody would know, but it was very obvious. My spleen grew some more, I believe, and my blood counts were all high. I felt awful. I couldn't eat. I lost a lot of weight. I couldn't eat because of my spleen. Well, I was switched over. The other two arms was basically a high dose and a lower dose. There were two different doses. It was apparent, I think, that I was onto the high dose. I went from a placebo to the high dose. My numbers crashed big time. And then I had to take within 2 weeks, they all crashed. I had to take a 2-week hiatus, and then they put me on the lower dose. My spleen was already shrinking. It was amazing how much it just changed my life. Within a very short period of time, I felt normal again. I mean, I felt healthy. Now I'm getting emotional. I felt healthy, and it was a good thing. I guess I was gradually getting worse. The placebo put me way down on the scale of quality of life, and then all of a sudden just the fact that my spleen is smaller, I could eat more, I could walk more, I could sit. I mean, I couldn't sit. I had to keep my body straight when my spleen was so big. So I could eat real food. I didn't have to drink all my food. So it was a great thing to have my spleen. It's amazing when you tell somebody your spleen's big and they're like, yeah. But when you actually live it and then it shrinks that much, it's big. During this time of when I actually got put on the drug and my spleen's doing well. I also got accepted into my ultrasound program. Now I'm finally realizing my kids are going to be going off to college. I need to figure out what I'm going to do when they go to college. So I went into school and living a normal life. I'm now starting to move on in my life. There was something happening on a Friday. There's some talk about, and it was in the news. Maybe it was just me looking for it in this drug company. But over the weekend, that's when the drug was canceled. And I was sitting in class after my doctor, my husband, everybody was saying, this is all a good thing. You know, that you're on a drug, you feel good. So right when I let my guard down is when I see the email saying, or the letter or whatever saying the trial was canceled. And I was just like, I started crying. What am I going to do now? The trial stopped, so everybody had to be off of it. So that meant going back to the doctor, getting off the drug, getting tested for, because I guess the reason they stopped it was for, I don't know how to pronounce it, vernix encephalopathy. And so getting tested for the thiamine and things like that, and basically there's rules that you have to follow to get off of a trial. We had to go through those rules. The second trial?
Yes.
I was on that one for about 3 years. In the beginning, I thought I had high hopes. My numbers were great, but no, it wasn't good. I fluctuated between MF and 1 and 2, between the Jakafi and then the second trial. But I stayed on it because I knew Jakafi wasn't working. I knew Hydrea, I had tried that. That didn't work. Interferon, I was kind of past the stage of going back to interferon. Plus, I didn't like the side effects. I've already tried that. Basically, I was running out of options, and the one option was staying on this trial. That was the other thing that kept me going in this one trial was now there's talk about fedratinib coming back, and so-and-so's buying it, and then they're being bought up by this person. And I kept saying to myself, it's only going to be a couple more months, and then that company was bought by another one. So I was kind of like, oh my gosh, and a couple months has now turned into a year or whatever. But yes, finally I was able to get on the compassionate use in February of this year. Just because it worked in the past doesn't mean it would work now. How many years have passed since? It's been 4 years, and I know my body's different, and I was hopeful that it would work, but I don't put all my eggs in one basket, ever. I'm always cautious. I've always lived my life being cautious. So the first time when I had the reaction, and I said to my husband, I said, I feel like my spleen is smaller, but I can't give in to that. So this time when it happened again, I didn't say anything. I waited until the month, and sure enough, it was smaller. So I was happy. Every time I go to the doctor, it seems like my spleen is shrinking. It's still shrinking. My clothes fit differently. I feel like a normal person. I have energy. I have, I feel great. I don't know. I just feel like I'm cautious. I just one step at a time, and you never know what's going to happen. So I'm positive that this is good. It's all, but I'm not sure it's the final answer because there's so much. Because we're so difficult and there's so much research going on. I'm grateful for the care that I have at the moment, and I'm grateful for the drug that's available. But I know that there's more coming down the pipe, whether it's going to be a combination with this drug. I know so many people that this drug doesn't work for, or like Jakafi is the answer for them, but it wasn't for me. So it's just a complicated disease, which means I'm just cautious. I've always been cautious.